Here we go again, jackasses. One of the first lessons I was taught in film school was to assume the audience are idiots and to treat them as such. So much of the content we consume today takes this approach, and it's no surprise when you see the bait-and-switch tactics Disney employs and how Kevin Smith's movies have found a way to get even shittier.
Fuck.
Dad and I are both okay.
So seeing a show like Severance come around and flip this narrative on its head is both unexpected and compelling. Sure, it's not a perfect show, but it kept me interested from the opening shot until the wild end. With the unlimited content of today and my increasingly limited time, finding a quality show or movie to watch is akin to hearing a smart thing come out of Mark Ruffalo's mouth.
Take a little extra time for yourself.
Anyway, Severance begins with an overhead shot of a lady lying on a conference room table. She looks as though she is awakening from a bender after a long weekend at Johnny Depp's house. We then hear the show's first line.
Who are you?
That line is essential because as things start to unfold and the story becomes more apparent, we, the viewer, begin to become more aware that these characters have no idea who they are. Mark Scout is a melancholy, grieving widow who works at a mega corporation called Lumen. We come to find out that to work at Lumen, each individual has to agree to Lumen's terms of service, if you will. This requires each employee have a chip surgically installed in their head, which separates their work consciousness from the one they have outside the office. This chip creates another persona for said employee while they are at work. The persona at work is known as an Innie, and the persona outside of work in everyday life is known as an outie. They're belly buttons, apparently. The Innie persona feels like they only work. They arrive in the elevator, work, and leave in the elevator. Rinse and repeat. They have no recollection of what life is like outside of Lumen's walls. It can feel like a prison or even hell. On the flip side, the outie has no idea what is going on at work or what they do within the walls of Lumen. As the show wastes no time in showing us, Mark was once a history professor at a nearby university. As we are led to believe, his wife was killed in a car accident a little while back, and Mark takes her death particularly hard. After her death, he tried to continue teaching at the university, but some of him died with her. All of this makes sense after we first glimpse Mark sobbing in his car before work one morning. Mark's Innie finds out that his work best buddy, Petey, has suddenly quit and Mark has been promoted to the head of his department. The first person we are introduced to in the show is this new girl named Helly. Side note, I thought it was a brilliant move at the show's beginning to start it from Helly's perspective. As viewers, we are trying to decipher what is happening just as she is. Anyway, Mark is now the lead for the Macro Data Refinement Division, or MDR for short. As far as the viewer can tell, their job is to move numbers into a bin on their computers that look like they were made in the 80s. What exactly are they doing? It's never quite explained, but if Orwell has taught us anything, it can't be good. Mark's outie is a quiet, sad loner who doesn't seem to have anybody outside of his sister and his nosy neighbor. Mark's very pregnant sister, Devin, sets him up on a date with her doula. Mark seems to be a bit of a drunk and imbibes a little too much on the date and ostensibly ruins his date with her. To round things out, Mark later encounters a man who claims to be Petey. Petey informs Mark that Lumen is up to some nefarious things and to tread lightly. Petey is dealing with something called reintegration, where he can't tell reality from the outie world with the Innie world he just departed. Ultimately, Petey succumbs to the reintegration sickness by having a brain aneurysm and dies as he appears to have completely lost his mind. Mark's outie shows up as Petey collapses and starts to see the effect that Lumen has had on this man. The new girl, Helly, is not taking well to her transition into severed work life. It is quite literally hell for her, so she spends much of her time early on trying to get a message to her outie. After discovering that Lumen has sensors that can decipher any letters or notes to their outside self, Helly takes drastic measures to get a message to her outside persona. She threatens to cut off her fingers and gets the attention of management. She records a message to her outie, but is disheartened when her outside persona informs her that she's going to continue working at Lumen, and that her thoughts and feelings are irrelevant as she is not a real person. Completely devastated and miserable, Helly takes another extreme measure and tries to end her life. Her outside persona wakes up in the elevator as she is hanging to die, but she ultimately is rescued. As soon as Helly is healed up, she is back at Lumen again, this time scared and defeated. From her Innie's perspective, no time has passed. The casting is spot on here. Britt Lower hits the nail on the head as Helly. Helly is stubborn, smart, and completely miserable in her work life. Her main objective is to get out of the hell her outside persona has put her in, even if that means taking her own life. Even though she is not the main protagonist in the show, her story arc is the most interesting in my opinion. Britt Lower is fantastic as Helly. She is complex, compelling, and overly empathetic. Adam Scott, when he isn't busy lecturing us peons about how to think on social media, is great as Mark Scout. He's able to find a balance between making the viewer pity him, but also root for him as more unfolds about the nefarious workings within Lumen. John Turturro and Christopher Walken are excellent as always, and play their unrequited desires with brevity and restraint.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
John Turturro's character of Irv is intriguing in that he seems like the follow-the-rules type of employee. At times, he appears to have hallucinations that is later explained as the season comes to a close. Zach Cherry is great as Dylan, a smart, sarcastic overachiever who doesn't ask too many questions until one day an experience outside of work makes him start to sing a new tune. Patricia Arquette is brilliant as Harmony Cobell. She plays essentially a double agent here. She is Mark's Innie's direct manager at Lumen, but also lives next door to Mark in the outside world. She has a key to his place and snoops whenever she gets a chance. The other standout performance for me was from Trammell Tillman as Milchick, the Orwellian-esque supervisor who infiltrates the workers' lives by killing them with kindness. He is overbearing and overly nice, but if a worker steps out of line, he can be ruthless and scary. He seems to feed off of sending employees to the break room to basically struggle session the offending party by reciting some sort of cultist apology over and over until he is convinced they mean it. Severance is a thought-provoking, well-crafted, well-paced, brilliantly written, and expertly directed show that will keep you guessing until the very end. Almost every scene was sprinkled with fine detail, and the finale may be one of the best I've seen in a while. Severance was created by Dan Erickson, whose Hollywood credits are about as bare as a theater showing of Lightyear. But he really put his heart and soul into this. Interestingly, most of the episodes were directed by Ben Stiller, and honestly, this might be his magnum opus when it comes to his turn behind the camera. There is an amazing amount of detail that went into each episode, and there are plenty of blink and you'll miss it Easter eggs hiding in plain sight that can explain what will happen in a future scene like this. Severance isn't a perfect show. It placates to a few of the corporate ideological boxes that need to be checked with every new show. And it is almost ironic that a mega corporation is behind a show that exposes the inner workings of an evil corporation. As things evolve and the picture becomes more clear, the viewer is able to see that Lumen is basically a cult. Overall, Severance is one of the best shows of the year, with one of the best season finales of any show. It has moments of levity and an otherwise Orwellian plot. There are many twists and turns, and after each episode ends, you want to start the next one right away, especially after the finale. The finale opened up a whole new chapter for them to get into, but as us simple peons, we are just going to have to wait. Season 1 gets an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, please give me a like and subscribe for unmatched content such as this. This Jackass's Innie is trying to break away from my Lumen-like existence as well. If you didn't like it, well, I'll just have to say good afternoon, good evening, and
Good night.
Yeah.
You suck, you jackass.